When did you witness a marriage end in record time? Story 1. I helped my best friend escape his marriage 18 hours after the wedding. 18 hours. That's the record for the shortest marriage I've ever witnessed, and it belongs to my childhood best friend. We lost him in college. He started seeing this woman who just cared where he was, then just wanted quality time. And pretty soon he'd ditched game night, birthdays, everything. By the time we graduated, he was basically a ghost. Fast forward a few years and a wedding invite lands in my mailbox. Thick paper, no return address, but a shaky note inside. I miss you guys. Please come. Half our crew smelled a gift grab. I talked them into showing up anyway. The ceremony was nice, small church, nothing flashy. Still, the vibe was off. Whenever one of us tried to chat with him, she drifted over with a polite smile and steered him away, saying things like, "We don't want to keep the photographer waiting." He looked grateful and trapped at the same time. Feels less like newlywed excitement and more like someone checking the perimeter of a cage. The reception nailed it. She sat at the head table scrolling her phone, barely looked up for toasts. He finally slipped over to us and said, almost in one breath, "Glad you came. I'm sorry I disappeared. Let's catch up soon." Before we could answer, she appeared, touched his shoulder and said, "Honey, my parents want a picture." He followed without a word. At 2 a.m, my phone rang. He sounded hoarse, asked if I could swing by their place. I found him on the front steps in his tux pants, holding a grocery bag full of clothes. "I ended it," he said, eyes red. "She told me tonight was the cutoff. Delete every contact who doesn't support the marriage and Thursday, including my mum." I told her that was insane. She said, "Then I'm done," and went upstairs to pack. He laughed once, ugly and short. So I beat her to it. 18 hours and he's out with a grocery bag. Messy exit, but wow, that clarity hit fast. The next morning, both of them called lawyers. Because they'd bought a townhouse together the year before, her idea of building a future, she already owned half. She kept the new crossover he'd surprised her with too. The paperwork dragged for 8 months and burned most of his savings, but the relationship itself flatlined before sunrise on day 1. He moved back to our hometown, crashes game night weekly, and still triple-checks any partner's definition of quality time. Says the whole thing was the most expensive lesson he'll ever pay for, but at least the tuition only lasted 18 hours. 8 months of legal drama for 18 hours of marriage. At least he figured it out fast. Story 2. My marriage lasted 6 hours before my wife robbed me. Fastest? About 6 hours, from you may kiss the bride to file a police report. I was best man for my closest friend. He had dated the bride for 2 years, lived with her for 1. She seemed practical, even generous. The year before, she spent nights on hold with insurance companies untangling his father's hospital bills, so no one questioned that she handled their finances. Whenever he asked about the wedding fund, she opened a spreadsheet on her laptop that showed everything. Deposits, vendor payments, healthy balance. He never felt a reason to log into the actual account. She was also old-fashioned, always pushing cash. Every vendor, she said, gave better rates if you showed up with an envelope instead of a check. My friend loved that she was saving them money. I thought it was quirky but harmless. The wedding was at a small golf club ballroom on a Saturday afternoon. Ceremony went smoothly, pictures were taken, cocktails poured. During the reception, she placed a plain white envelope on the gift table and cheerfully told guests it was their honeymoon fund. By the time they cut the cake, the thing looked ready to burst. "That envelope is basically a piñata full of trust, sitting there like, 'Steal me, I'm ripe.'" Right after their first dance, she told him the room felt stuffy. She would lock the envelope in her car and get some air. Quick kiss, out the door, elegant train swishing behind her. Nobody blinked. 20 minutes later, I realised I had not seen her. At 30, I started scanning corners. By 40, even her own aunt was whispering. My friend kept refreshing his messages, convinced she would text an apology for disappearing. That creeping dread when the bride just vanishes from her own reception. He finally went to look. 10 minutes later, he trudged back in, white as the tablecloths, and grabbed my arm. Her car was gone. His keyring was missing from his jacket pocket, and his debit card was not in his wallet. We opened the banking app together. The account that should have held nearly $20,000 showed $43 and small change. 3 withdrawals from earlier in the week were tagged as final venue payment. The bar tab alone would eat half of what was left. We hurried to the gift table. The honeymoon envelope and a few high-end looking boxes were gone. Her maid of honour, someone none of us had known before that day, had slipped away too. $43? That's not a balance, it's an insult written in numbers. The venue still needed its balance. His parents covered it while guests gathered in stunned knots, plates half finished. A deputy took a statement but explained that with no cameras on the parking lot and both women's phones powered off, odds were slim. Before Monday arrived, we tracked down the officiant and signed annulment paperwork so the license never got filed. Legally, the marriage vanished. The debt stuck around. The next year was rough. He checked his balance after every purchase, flinched when coworkers mentioned weddings. Around month 8, he sent me a late-night photo of new locks on his apartment door with the caption, "Moving forward." He meant it. 2 years later, he married a different woman who thinks thrift stores are romantic. At that reception, I stood next to the sealed card box like a nightclub bouncer. Guarding that card box like it's the crown jewels, you can't blame him for the paranoia. Every so often, a friend sends him an article about a wedding day cash scam in another state. The descriptions vary, but the grin in the attached photo always looks a little familiar. Somewhere out there, she's probably perfecting her something old, something new, something stolen routine. Story 3. I drove my best friend home from her honeymoon to her divorce. I watched a marriage implode in 14 days flat. My childhood best friend married a guy everyone liked. Polite, thoughtful, the type who refills your water glass before you even notice it is empty. The ceremony was on a lakeside patio, fairy lights and way too expensive fish tacos. They flew out that night for a 2-week honeymoon at a mid-range island resort. I expected sunburned selfies, maybe a cheesy postcard. Instead, a week in, my phone rang at 3 a.m. She was sobbing so hard I could barely keep up. Between gasps, she admitted she had met a guy she used to flirt with online. Hiding behind a spa day, she spent an afternoon drinking with him, then panicked the moment it was over. She begged me not to tell anyone. I said the only thing that would get her to breathe. "Okay, but you need to fix this." After that, radio silence. That guilt must have been eating her alive to call at 3 a.m. from her honeymoon. Their return flight landed the following Sunday. I offered to pick them up, partly to save them a rideshare, mostly to see if they were okay. At arrivals, he pushed the luggage cart like it weighed nothing. She looked like she had been up for 48 hours. The drive was quiet. When she tried to touch his arm, he adjusted the dashboard vents instead. I told myself they were just jet-lagged, but the air felt thick. At their apartment, he asked me to wait a minute before heading out. We sat at the kitchen table, me, him, her. He pulled out his phone, opened a photo of a bar receipt, and slid it across. Then screenshots of her messages. Calm voice, shaking hands. He said he had noticed odd charges on the joint card, checked her phone while she slept, and spent the last 3 days lining up a couch at his brother's place. "I talked to a lawyer yesterday," he added. "I'll file this week. I'm not staying married to someone who cheats on the honeymoon." She kept repeating that it had only been drinks, that nothing physical happened, that she had just freaked out. He said it did not matter. The trust was gone. He grabbed a small duffel, thanked me for the ride, and walked out. The door clicked shut like a period at the end of a sentence. The way he just calmly destroyed her with receipts and screenshots, that controlled devastation hits different. The divorce paperwork showed up a few days later. She signed immediately, moved back in with her parents, and spent the summer dodging questions from relatives who still had wedding confetti in their cars. The online guy blocked her after one guilt-soaked paragraph, proving he was never an actual option. That was 3 years ago. Her ex transferred to another state and, from what I hear, is dating someone new. My friend and I still trade birthday texts, but our calls dried up. Hard to stay close after you keep a secret that big and watch 2 lives split before the thank you cards even went out. Short enough to fit in the return policy window on the gifts, but long enough to leave a lifetime of awkward silences. Story 4. I watched my friend fake his life for a wedding that lasted only 6 hours. 6 hours, give or take 30 minutes. That's the shortest marriage I've ever witnessed, and I was standing 8 feet away as best man. The groom and I grew up in the same crummy apartment block. Milk crates for furniture, electricity that went out if you used the microwave and the toaster together. When he met a woman whose family name tops a downtown museum, he panicked and built himself a fresh biography. He even filed a fake obituary for his father so the family lawyer's background sweep would stop at a death notice. I told him it was insane. He said it was necessary. His one wild card was his uncle. Angry, usually half-pickled, and touchy about being left out of things. Last Christmas, the guy got tossed from a dive bar for singing karaoke into a traffic cone. Not invite material. My friend swore the uncle had no idea where or when the wedding was, but a second cousin bragged on social media and tagged the venue, and screenshots travel fast. Ceremony day. Country club lawn the bride's family actually owns. String quartet, gourmet hors d'oeuvres, the whole catalogue. While guests found their seats, the groom kept dabbing his forehead, asking staff to confirm that anybody smelling like whiskey stayed outside. He checked his phone so often the officiant reminded him to silence it. Trying to block every possible whiff of whiskey while wearing a rented tux? That's stress sweating its way right through the starch. Everything held together through the vows and the photographs. During dinner, the bride's father delivered a stiff speech about integrity and how background defines character. My friend squeezed my shoulder under the table, relief finally settling in. That's when the banquet doors slammed. In came the uncle, shirt half tucked, clutching a plastic bottle like it was an award. He wasn't just drunk, he was hurt. He barked that he only learned about the wedding from the internet and figured crashing was the only way to congratulate his nephew. That entrance landed like a bowling ball on a glass coffee table. Every fragile lie just spider-cracked at once. He commandeered the microphone. Most of what he said was slurred and ugly. Memories of us grilling beans over a trash can fire when the heat got shut off. Stories of midnight repo runs with the groom's dad. Guests shifted in their seats. The line everyone remembers was clear as a bell. Tell them how that fancy degree got funded when Grandpa's warehouse just happened to burn down. Silence. The bride turned to my friend and whispered, "Any part of that wrong?" He managed a single shake of his head. She nodded, walked to her father, spoke briefly. The father returned, kept his voice low, and asked my friend to leave the premises immediately. No shouting, just cold logistics. Security escorted the uncle out next. Her calm nod hurt more than any screaming match ever could. It's the quiet verdict you can't appeal. By 11, the dance floor was bare except for staff boxing centerpieces. The cake never got sliced. First business day after, her attorney filed for annulment citing fraud, and the country club forwarded half the vendor invoices per the signed contract. Roughly $40,000 landed on my friend's desk, technically enforceable because he'd co-signed everything. 40 grand for boxed hydrangeas and a cake no one tasted. That's a tuition payment made entirely of regrets. He sold his car, then moved 3 time zones away and rents a studio over someone's garage. Says he's still sending checks for a party he barely remembers. The uncle brags about the story to anyone who'll listen. As for the bride, I'm told she married a colleague from her father's firm last spring. The ceremony was smaller, and from all accounts uneventful. So yeah, 6 hours from I now pronounce you to please vacate the property. I'm really hoping that record stands. 6 hours. Let's hope nobody rushes to beat that speed record. Story 5. I annulled my marriage 48 hours after the wedding. My wedding was picture perfect. Outdoor ceremony, strings of lights, my dad crying harder than I did. Every cliché in the best way. After the reception, my brand new husband and I crashed at a hotel downtown, ordered greasy room service breakfast the next morning, and joked that we were finally a boring married couple. Monday, he went back to work early, while I took the day off to dig through the gift pile. Around lunch, I was propped on the couch with a stack of cards when my phone buzzed. Facebook message request from a woman I did not know. Her profile photo rang a bell. The college ex he once described as ancient history. Her first line was an apology for ruining a honeymoon. The second said I deserved to start marriage with truth, not pity. Then the screenshots rolled in. That moment when a stranger's DM just obliterates everything. The whiplash is instant and brutal. They covered 2 months, ending a week before our wedding. Him. Telling her he missed their inside jokes, hated our save the dates, and would call the whole thing off if she said the word. Her, steadily shutting him down until the last line. Marry her and leave me alone forever. I reread everything until the blue chat bubbles blurred. I wanted some outrageous edit button. Maybe he typed it when drunk, maybe an elaborate prank. Except the date stamps were brutal. He ordered our wedding bands the same afternoon he begged her one last time. Time-stamped betrayal is impossible to spin. The receipts don't lie. I screenshotted the screenshots, emailed them to myself, and waited at the kitchen table, lights off, house silent except for our still-swirling dishwasher. He came in, dropped his briefcase, and asked why I was sitting in the dark. I asked how long ancient history had lasted. He froze, then reached for excuses. Cold feet, pre-marriage panic, therapy promises. When I slid the phone toward him, he crumpled, ugly crying, insisting he loved me now, that the texts were just fear-talking. I realized he was not sorry for the texts. He was sorry they had surfaced. Nothing in me wanted to spend anniversaries wondering if someone better changed her mind. I told him I was driving to my old apartment that night and filing for an annulment first thing Tuesday. Knowing the apology is for exposure, not action, is the clearest green light to walk, and she doesn't hesitate. There was no shouting, no dramatic suitcase toss. He just kept repeating that he could fix it. I left him mid-sentence, tossed a weekend bag in my trunk, and slept on the lumpy futon I had not yet sold. The annulment paperwork sailed through in under a month. Apparently fraudulent inducement is fast when both parties sign. A mutual friend later confirmed the ex never responded again. She only sent those screenshots to end his romantic pestering. So the fastest marriage I have witnessed is my own. 48 hours from wedded bliss to packing boxes. Weirdly, the speed is what saved me. 2 days of heartbreak beat decades of second place. 48 hours and she turned a would-be marathon of doubt into a sprint toward freedom. Painful, sure, but impressively efficient. Story 6. I watched a single post end my coworker's 36-hour marriage. I used to share a cubicle row with a guy who treated life like a highlight reel. He always had a bigger fish story, a louder watch, a newer lease. For 6 months straight, all we heard about was his upcoming wedding, custom suit, rooftop venue, string quartet, the whole magazine spread. None of us were invited, but by Saturday night, professionally edited photos were flooding every platform he had. It really did look like a fairy tale. Sunday morning, I am half awake scrolling through stories when his profile pops up again. I tap, expecting more shots of sparklers and champagne. Instead, I get a close-up of his new wife dead asleep in their hotel bed. Sheet barely covering her, makeup still perfect, very clearly nothing on underneath. Swipe. Another angle. Swipe. Another. It was the kind of thing you might send to a buddy if you were both 17 and stupid, not something you blast to your mother, your boss, and 300 casual acquaintances. I stared at my phone in shock for about 10 seconds before the story vanished. He must have realised, but not before half the office saw it. Our team group chat lit up like a Christmas tree. Even one of the senior directors typed, "Please tell me I'm not seeing this." Screenshots were already flying around, which made me feel sick because you knew they would live forever. Secondhand dread is screaming right now. My finger reflexively wants to swipe the whole world into airplane mode. By early afternoon, bits of the fallout started trickling in through mutual friends. Apparently, he had been drinking hard after the reception and tried to flex for his groomsmen in a private group chat. Wrong button, public story, boom. His wife woke up around 10 to a phone buzzing non-stop with messages, her college roommate, her aunt, even her pastor asking if she was okay. She checked Instagram, saw the screenshots, and lost it. The next part happened in the hotel lobby. Her dad showed up in jeans and a grim face and asked her if she wanted to go home. She said yes. My coworker followed them downstairs, still in yesterday's tux pants, saying it was just a dumb mistake and he could fix it. The dad told him he was lucky he was in a public place, then walked his daughter straight out to the car. Right there, in front of the concierge desk, she said she was done, and that she'd call a lawyer before dinner. The dad just calmly walking her out while the groom scrambles behind them. That's some serious quiet power. She kept her word. A process server showed up at his condo that evening with annulment papers. Monday morning his desk was empty. Around lunchtime HR sent a short email. He'd resigned for personal reasons effective immediately. Nobody replied. The whole floor just kind of exhaled. I never saw him again, but rumour has it he moved back in with his mother for a while and deleted every social account. The marriage? Technically about 36 hours long. Fastest I have ever witnessed, and all because the guy who needed to look like the man forgot the difference between a group chat and a public timeline. 36 hours and it's over. Sometimes karma moves faster than you think it will. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and check out this video next.